something is not fake just because it's staged. Welcome back to the Wandering Star Farmhouse. My name's Jeanette and I'm glad you're here. Today I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things that I have been thinking about lately. Some of it started about a year ago when I listened to this podcast by Jill Winger on Old Fashioned on Purpose called The Rise of the Farmfluencers. And basically she was talking about the whole movement, kind of the cottagecore movement, farm influencers who are on Instagram and places where they just are really aesthetic heavy of creating these like beautiful, often historic, just idyllic images and videos for social media. And I think she's coming from a good place where she is trying to encourage people to not feel overwhelmed and feel the need for everything to be aesthetically beautiful, to especially if you're beginning homesteading. But the part that kind of rubbed me the wrong way is that she never allowed space for aesthetics and beauty to be one of your goals or something worth pursuing. And that is the disagreement that I have with her on this issue. So Jill Winger, if you're not familiar with her, she has been around the homesteading community for a long, long time. I used to read her blog posts back when I lived in Kansas, which was the early 2010s is probably when I was reading her blog, The Prairie Homestead. In this podcast, she goes into detail about why she kind of has issue with these farm influencers that have this, really beautiful aesthetic, and, talking about how, it's hard to achieve. It's maybe not realistic for every day. But when it comes right down to it, she kind of states the purposes of homesteading. And these are things that, they're really just her opinions of the purpose of homesteading, right? So she talks about the desire for like independence, personal responsibility, and also just to grow food, right? And I think that those are very integral to many people that are seeking after homesteading, but she doesn't allow any space for this idea of a pursuit of beauty. And I really think that there are some of us who that pursuit of beauty and a more beautiful life is part of why we get into the handmade, homemade life, which includes homesteading. So the thing that I think is interesting is she even admits that, people may look at certain things like her garden or her homestead and think that they look very aesthetically pleasing. And so they may think that she's being hypocritical, but she says, no, it took time for it to get there. So the point is, why is it that other people should not be allowed to take that time to pursue and create something beautiful as well? Like everything with social media, it's good to realize where you are and where you've come from, but it's also fine to use social media to give you goals of where to go forward to in the future. However, we all know that social media can be bad if we use it to compare ourselves to someone who is at a different point along their track of progress than us. Also, we need to keep reality in mind too. I was watching a video from Ballerina Farm the other day, and she was talking about her frequently asked questions of how long does it take her to create these videos where she makes, an Instagram video or a YouTube short that's, a very small condensed movie of her making like an entire meal from scratch. One that I watched one time was she made I think it was lasagna from scratch, and she made the homemade cheese from milking the cow, and she made homemade tomato sauce. She made homemade pasta noodles from flour and eggs. So she went through the whole process to make this entirely from scratch meal. But in this frequently asked questions, she answered that it does take her on average 4 to 5 hours to make a meal like this. And then I don't believe that was even counting then to edit a meal like that into a video. So it's true, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You have to recognize what things actually take. But creating something of beauty is not necessarily a fake pursuit or an unworthy pursuit. One of the self-reflective questions that Jill asked is to think about, would you still do it if nobody else saw it? Now, she's obviously talking about social media, But I think that this question is just kind of misguided, because we don't live in a bubble. We live in families and communities. And there are things that I do and I want them to be seen and appreciated. I do things for my husband, but I put in special work or make it extra fancy, and I do want him to notice and appreciate that. And with my children, I want them to live a beautiful life. I want to create beauty for them to see and at some point enjoy and appreciate. Maybe that day is not today. I think it would be nearly impossible to live a life where nobody else saw the fruits of our labors and ever expressed any amount of appreciation or admiration or gratitude. That doesn't sound like a happy life to me. And that doesn't sound like a self-fulfilled life if I only care about me and my opinion about everything, and I'm never thinking about others around me and valuing their opinions or their input. Also, it is valuable to just create beauty that's only for yourself to enjoy. For myself, I always have to have chairs in my garden, because there are times when I do just like to sit and look out over it and just appreciate what I've created, appreciate the beauty of it, and just soak it all in. So I definitely advocate for people having sitting areas in their garden so that they can just sit and enjoy the visual fruits of their labor. She also talks about how if you have to stage it to make it sell, then maybe the thing itself doesn't have very much value. Something is not fake just because it's staged. Like with my kids, where I was making homemade borscht this week. I knew it wasn't going to be the most popular thing I made all week, but I made some delicious, beautiful homemade sourdough bread to go with it, because I knew the kids would love that. And so me staging it or presenting it in a way that makes it appealing to them is overall a good thing. It gets them there. But why is all this on my mind right now? I've been thinking about my farm for this next year and what my farm goals are for this next year. So we moved here 2 summers ago. In 2022 was our first summer here. And I think our goal for that summer was just to dig in, just jump in and dig in. I had some starts that I had started in my greenhouse at my old house, and I wanted to get those in the ground. We spent a lot of time hammering in T-posts and getting fencing established so that we could have the animals. And so that was the first year, just kind of dig in. Now, our second year, 2023, I'd say our focus was expansion. We wanted to expand what we were able to grow from that first summer, which was really only half a summer, and really get some of the benefits of having such a larger property than we'd ever had before. And so we were able to do that. In my garden, I definitely produced way more produce than I ever have. I canned way more produce than I ever have and froze way more produce than I ever have. So I would say that was definitely a success. Now that we're here for our 3rd calendar year on the farm, I'm setting goals for what I want to do for the farm this year. And I think that my main goal for this year is to beautify. I definitely have high production goals for our property. That's why we moved out of the city. That's why we wanted more property, is so that we could produce more. But production is only part of it. God created the earth to be both beautiful and productive. When God put Adam and Eve in the garden, he told them to dress it and till it. Get to work, make it beautiful, make it productive, both. So one of the issues that we will be up against this year is budget. It's always an issue. They say that there's 3 choices. You can either do things fast or good or cheap. You can only get 2 of the 3 ever. And so that means if we need to do things cheap, but if we want it to be pretty good, then we need to take our time and the projects will probably go slow. So I'm okay with projects taking a while. Also, I think it's fine to have shorter term goals and then longer term goals and say, this is the level that I'm able to do something right now. And in the future, I have a higher goal, but I still want to make it beautiful to the extent that I am able to right now. So my goal isn't to get any of these things done fast, but just definitely to make some progress on them this year. So what are some of the things that I'm talking about on our farm? Well, there's some indoor projects, just a little bit of aesthetic things throughout the house that, some of the things that I've been meaning to do ever since we moved in, like hang up the sock baskets in the laundry room. Also, I have some ideas for a kitchen facelift, and this is not a kitchen renovation. That is definitely not in the budget, but there's some things that have bothered me about the kitchen since we moved in, and we've addressed a number of them so far, but there's a couple more things that I'd like to address to make the kitchen more aesthetically pleasing and beautiful for me to be in. Outside on the farm, we have some trellising that needs to get done this year. You know, the best plan is to get trellising in before you plant things, but if you don't have it in before you plant it, you really need to get it in rather quickly because things start to take off faster than you think they will. So we need to do some trellising of our raspberries this year, and the more ambitious one is the trellising of the grapes. I've got, you know, like really big plans for that. So we'll see how it goes. But also I really want to make my garden more beautiful this year as well. The main thing is I want to try and reduce weeds. I want to do a lot more mulching to get the weed pressure down a little bit. And that's just a constant struggle in gardens. It just really is, but it doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. Yes, it is realistic for gardens to have weeds in them, but your plants will do better if they have less weed competition. So it's practical and beauty. I also want to continue to increase my number of perennial plants and also grow more flowers this year. I had more flowers my first summer here, less flowers last summer. I want to get some more flowers in this summer than I did last year. And also with that, I kind of want to improve and beautify some of our outdoor spaces. This house doesn't quite have as nice an outdoor space as our previous house did. We had a really nice deck in our last house, and I just want to make sure that we're creating space to spend the time that we want to outside. So I hope you'll join me and follow along this year as we work on, this is our third year on this property, and we really just want to work on beautifying it this year and making it a place that we can enjoy and love to look at and enjoy the beauty of a lot, as well as everything that is producing for us and all the food that it is creating for us. Please hit that subscribe button to follow along, and I'll see you in the next video.